Um,
Hi, Haley.
Hello, Brian. So nice to see you.
I love seeing you, and I look forward to it. Uh, and I always try to think of, well, what are Haley and I going to talk about, this time? And we tend to jump all over the place, so it doesn't matter where we
Well,
start.
it's a conversation with coffee, so it's one of those
Oh,
conversations where we're just like, this is our catch up.
I have my water. Uh, I haven't
And to
had
be clear,
coffee.
you're 2 hours ahead of me, so that's why you're not having coffee.
Well, I haven't had coffee in 30 years, so
Oh,
when I drank coffee, I drank it black because it was during the, revolution, anti. So I thought, well, if I get thrown in jail, I probably won't have access to cream and sugar. So I might as well learn to drink it black. So,
I'm a
uh,
white. I like my coffee with a touch of milk.
yeah. So here's a possible topic. Um, and I think it's something everyone can relate to. How do you change bad habits? And because sometimes it is really, really, really hard to do it,
Hmm.
right? If I can give you an example, I sent a birthday card to somebody, and the person responded, "Thank you so much. I need to tell you that your writing is improving."
Like what part of my writing's improving? Was it
And
handwriting or my words?
And that as you get older, I understand that you become more relaxed. So good for you. So I'm thinking, I've got to let my brother know that this came through. And I thought, no, if you let your brother or others know and give the name of the person, then um, that's uh, not right thinking and right
Mhm.
speaking, because it achieves nothing but putting a, a gray cloud around them.
Gossip.
Uh, Pardon?
It's
Gossip,
gossip.
gossip, gossip. Yeah. Um, and so I didn't. I've mentioned it to you in this, and I mentioned it to somebody else as an example of, excuse me, how hard it is to break a habit. Because listen, in a second, I would have let my younger brother know immediately because he knows this person too.
It's
Uh,
wildfire.
yeah, um, but I didn't, and I would love to say that that was the end of it, but
You're still thinking about it.
well, I no, I'm not. Well, I'm not thinking about doing it. I keep wanting to do it. And so I thought, boy, it's really hard to break bad habits. You get to the point in your life where you really do believe in right speech,
Hmm. And
right?
I think you get, not only do you believe in it, there's almost like this non-negotiable where you kind of have to put in the effort. It's not I want to put in the effort. It's like, no, I have to do this.
Yeah, by my age and with all the work that I've done, uh, I don't have a choice really if I want to continue to grow. I can go back to bad habit and then maybe realize all the stuff I've sent out there that's negative energy. Uh, But uh, in most things, I probably would have forgotten about it a long time ago. But this one keeps festering because I think it's so funny and
Mhm.
and audacious
And
on
I
the
think
person.
sometimes it's these really simple, light things that we don't pay much attention to. We're just like, oh, that's silly. I should get over it. That really are profound in the lesson. Like the lesson here is much bigger than just the headline.
Absolutely. And why am I upset about it?
Hmm.
This person has not read one of my books, but is basing it all on what I've written over the years in birthday messages. So that's totally,
And I mean, gosh, I mean,
yeah.
how we judge birthdays.
Well, and you know what? my so I wrote a response, and I was my response was, I'm really glad to hear that you're living so happily. I'm really glad to know that you're laughing, because this person said they're laughing a lot more. And I said, laughter and gratitude equal joy.
Hmm.
So good for you. Period. Love, Brian. And I felt good about that. Uh,
I think it's, I think I'm trying to figure out where we're starting here, but I think just with the feeling good afterwards, I think it's always good to trust the pure good feeling. Obviously, like being reactive and responses would have a bit of a giggle, but immediately afterwards you'd be like, damn it, I shouldn't have.
mhm.
But sending sort of a more neutral based message, more on the gratitude side, you feel good immediately. And I think when we're talking about breaking bad habits, I don't know where I got this bit of advice, but it was doing things that seem hard in the beginning, but end up you end up having this long run of easiness because it was hard in the beginning.
Uh-huh.
So it's doing things that are easy in the beginning, but make it harder over the long term. I
Yeah.
think when we're talking about habits, those bad habits are doing something easier that creates difficulty in the long term.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
breaking that bad habit is doing what's hard in the short term so that the long term can be much easier, simpler. And I think it very much correlates with like the last 2 weeks since we chatted, which I've been dissecting surrender. And, when we're talking about bad habits and wanting to break bad habits, surrender is a big word there. You have,
Absolutely.
you have to be able to get to a place where you have faith that you're surrendering into something better. And then you kind of have to ask the question, well, what am I surrendering into? What is the surrender thing?
Let me give you a perfect example as a result of one of your teachings that I've picked up over all the time that we've uh, chatted together. And my experience with a woman I pass all the time when I walk the dog, who I've learned was the rabbi of a gay synagogue, down here in Fort Lauderdale. And a Jewish friend said yesterday, why would there need to be a gay synagogue? And I said, well, for the same reason there's gay people like having mass together as gay people. Well, that's different because the church is so awful, but the Jewish community, with some major exceptions of conservatives, are so welcoming. I said, but they think they're welcoming, but they often don't understand is that they're heterosexist, that the model that they're thinking when they teach is the heterosexual family. And they're not excluding gay people, but gay people have to learn how to fit into that message, right? Because they're
Right. And
not,
I think it feels like there's almost like this sense of pity, like you're taking in the underdog.
that's right. So she was in the cul-de-sac. Sebastian was loose. And I said, would you like to see the garden? And yeah, because the garden's really cool, as you know. And and she said, oh yeah. So she came in, walked around, loved everything. And I said, okay, I have some questions for you. She said, okay. So we sat down and a couple of comfortable chairs by the water. And I said, tell me what you think about Gaza and Israel.
Ooh, she went straight in.
Well, right into it because I thought we're friends. She knows who I am. She respects my writing. So there is that, right? I respect her as a former rabbi and as a Jew. There's a big story. I mean, I have had Jews have made a huge difference in my life. Uh, so, at any rate, I became aware in my conversation with her of my tendency to simplify things,
Mm,
like say, it's Netanyahu's fault. And she said, there's a bigger story than that.
mhm.
So she started to teach me the history of all the countries surrounding Israel and Israel when Golda Meir was there. I don't know if you remember Golda
Yep.
Meir's name. And and after listening to her, I thought, you've got to be more careful about, putting this stuff out if it's uneducated. And you're very careful, when I would give you an opinion about Trump or what was going on in this country. You say, well, I want to hear all, I really want to read more before I take a position. And I thought, oh God, Hayley, hurry up. You're
You're not
either
the only person, dear Brian. I have so
you're,
many of my friends that are just like, you can't just be on the fence. And I'm like, I haven't even got to the fence yet.
you're either a Republican or Democrat, liberal or
Yeah.
conservative. Tell me.
It frustrates many people in my world that I'm slower.
Well, and then it goes back to initial statement that you had uh, about how difficult it is to surrender. Was that the word?
Hmm.
Yes, because when you surrender to better behavior, you don't know what's next
Mm-mm.
because you're leaving behind a pattern of behavior that you're quite comfortable with after 77 years. And you think, okay, I'm not going to do that if I can help it. But what's next? Well, my friends start saying, oh, come on, get off the fence. I've already got people yelling at me for talking about love too much, right? I think, talk about Trump. I think, no, that's just throwing red meat to, people who already agree with me. Because those are the only people who read my Facebook posts. Uh, so, I really want to write about the thing that I believe in, that love conquers all, and that it's our responsibility, not, some bishop's responsibility or rabbis. It's our responsibility
Hmm.
to have love in our garden. Uh, but it does raise the question, Haley, okay, so if you're not going to call your brother and you're not going to blame Netanyahu right off the bat because there are other things that are going on. She didn't defend him. She said Golda Meir lived in a two-bedroom apartment. Netanyahu has a palace. There's spending all the people's money. So I didn't feel like she was a, rah rah. I can't hear any
He's just giving
criticism
out
person.
facts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and she's brilliant. I said, "Oh my God, you know more about this than anybody." She said, "Well, I lived in Israel for different periods of time. My folks sent me there after I graduated from high school, and then the big war started, and I was stuck. I couldn't get out." My parents are thinking, "I blame myself. We sent our daughter."
I
So, any
it's
rate, to talk about your experience with uh, not taking quick judgments and not knowing and not being supported in that, and then not knowing what's next for you down the line, or is this a lifelong commitment?
to answer your first question, like how do I manage being what some people call stubborn?
Oh,
I mean,
please. I'm on their list. Let me just say.
I think so. First of all, where I am with stubbornness, I believe that stubbornness is a word that people use from a sort of projection. They call people stubborn when they're frustrated with them. They can't get that person to agree with them, so now that person's stubborn.
I think that's brilliant.
So I think it's one of these things, we talk about this so much, old soul resilience. I have always been, since my earliest memory, the person that wouldn't go with everybody else, that would be like, is that true?
Uh-huh.
Or I don't know. And
Uh-huh.
questioning things, not from a place of being obnoxious and thinking I knew everything, just from like, it doesn't make sense. I need more information.
You
And
told me
obviously, when
that,
you're a kid doing that,
yeah.
comes across as very obnoxious and requiring discipline. So that sort of shaped a lot of how I grew up and how I evolved in the world to where I am now, where I openly celebrate that somehow I have the courage. And I hear my cousin saying this when I was like, when he said it to me, I think when I was like 22, he was like, "You're the most courageous person in this family." And he said, he's like, "I don't know where you get the courage, but you do stuff that none of us would ever do." And I was like, "It's not that big a deal." And he's like, "No, it's out there. You're out there with courage."
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't like ever really see it that way until he said it. And it was really loud in my head a lot of the time where I'm just out there in the field with my courage.
Yeah.
I've always had this thing in me that's always like seek the truth or seek more information. Don't just take what's being told blindly. I think, when we get to where I am today and it's being able to stand in that, it's really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. I still want to do it, and I still am stuck in the mud that you can't just change my mind because you have an opinion. You have to give me facts that I haven't seen before, and then I'll have
And
to digest them. I've had the conversations about Gaza and Israel, Ukraine and Russia with many friends, and I've always walked away like shook because I'm just like, wow, we're so different, but we're friends. On everything else but this, we're really good friends, but when it comes to this, we're so different. And they get really frustrated at me because they're thinking I should think like them. And I think, there's also that we see this being played out in the collective. If I know you, then you should think like me, right?
well, Haley, if I can, first of all, a real sign of the courage is how you dealt with your folks. You gave me the example of how you quit judging quickly with Tony Robbins, and you went to the weekend with him and decided that all the stuff you had been saying, was just not accurate. So
Mm-hmm.
that caught you by the hairs on the back of your
Yeah.
head. Uh, I want to offer a caveat on your definition of stubborn. And I agreed with you so quickly, and then my brain offered me some examples of where that's not true. That you're my mom, and you are totally cannot take care of yourself. You're so ill, but you will not leave the family home and go to the nursing facility that your doctor and everybody has told you is your only option because you're going to die in bed. Now, I would say in that instance, you're being stubborn. That does not mean that I feel you don't have the choice to stay in your own home and die, just like people who know a hurricane is coming and they
Mm-hmm.
decide to ride it out. We can call them stubborn, but it's their choice. How we die, how we live is really all about us. Uh, but I think part of frustration that people might have with you is that everything you say otherwise leads me to believe that you are very progressive through your spiritual path in understanding the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that um and being propelled by love, right? Unless you feel that there isn't an accurate description of love,
Mm-hmm.
people assume by your persona that it's natural that you would agree with them. And it's shocking, given your persona and your spiritual path, that you don't. Does
Mm-hmm.
that sound familiar?
It's very familiar and it's very intimidating. Like I come across my energy is intimidating. It's puts people very much in this energy of defense
Hmm. When you don't agree with them,
when I
or
don't
because,
agree with them or when I have well, that's not, maybe there's more to the story.
and also intimidated by your spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
without you saying that I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that, they can uh, be put off, even though they don't want to be, by where you are in your development,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, that can
Absolutely.
happen. That either is attractive to people and they want to spend time with you, or it's off-putting because
Mm-hmm.
they think you think you're better than they are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's, I think that proves a point that there's, not everybody is for us. We're not here to be friends with 8 billion people.
Uh-huh.
There's people that will see us, will hear us, will be with us. And there are people that will just be like, no. And, part of that surrender is being able to be okay with, I'm happy with my yes people, and I'm okay if the no people aren't okay with me.
And Haley, I've come to the conclusion recently that it doesn't matter if there are any yes people, because the most important thing I need to do in my life is know me, is to know Brian and to
Yeah.
understand who I am. Now, loving kindness is a natural thing for me, so I don't try. It's not, and I don't take any, I don't want any bows about it. But my attitude towards things, where I do correct or challenge people on their thinking, I know that can be off-putting. And if I hunger for their approval, as the Tao says, I'm going to be their prisoner for life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even one person, if I hunger for their approval, I'm their prisoner, right?
Yeah.
Because I have to do what makes them happy. So, we're the only people, and each person has their own life that they need to, come
Resolve with. And I
to
think when
peace
we're
with.
talking about bad habits and surrender, I think we can say that seeking other people's validation and being driven by other people's validation is not the healthiest habit. We can say this because we've encountered it, we've seen the other side of that.
Yes.
So, when we think about, like, right, how do I break that habit of seeking outside validation? We have to surrender. But what am I surrendering into? And I think we so often think that surrender is this thing in the ethers. It's kind of like God.
Hmm.
Is God physical? Where is God? And I think when we're talking, what I, dissecting the word surrender over these last 2 weeks, surrendering is into ourselves, into our heart, into that knowing that says, this is not the best habit for us. There's a better habit. We're surrendering into something that is tangible, which is us. And within us is God, is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. And example, if I can, for you of that, of surrendering, I was walking Sebastian, and the clouds in South Florida at this time of year are extraordinary.
Mm.
Filled with color at the end of the day,
Oh,
bill,
beautiful.
billowing, billowing, billowing. And I looked up at it and I thought, there is God. And then I thought, Brian, when you were young, when there would be a beam of light coming through the clouds, just one beam of light that came from the sky through the cloud, that was God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to myself, okay, now I know you believe that there's divinity in all things, including your flowers in the garden, but um, what is God?
What are
And
we?
what,
Yeah. What
yeah,
is it?
and when I fall, for instance, and I say thanks a lot, who am I saying thanks a lot to? I've had enough today. Thank you. I could use a little more help. Who am I saying that to? Because there's not some concierge in the sky or puppeteer, you know, but that my life has been about that, being taught that,
It's outside.
you pray outside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But when you eliminate all of it, when you say, no, not true, not true, not true, and yes, it's all true, right? You're surrendering to nothingness or oblivion or on.
I think you're surrendering where I'm with it today. And keep in mind, I've been meditating and journaling about this every day now, since we probably last spoke. Where I am with it is that we're surrendering into ourselves and that actual feeling, the physical bodily feeling of this feels good, this feels true.
You
So
have
it's
to
a
take time to do
feeling.
that. Huh?
Pardon?
You have to take time to do that.
You have to take time to do that, and you have to put the effort in to be able to discern what is true from the heart versus what the mind is saying, the ego
Right.
is saying. And I think if you're surrendering into the heart desire, you're always going to be better. Every day is going to be better. Every moment's going to be better. Even though you don't know what that moment's going to look like, You're surrendering into knowing that it's going to be better. When
And
we're
it, go ahead, please.
when we're surrendering into the ego, into the mind, we're surrendering into more fear. We're surrendering into more doubt. We're surrendering more into that worry, 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 worry. It doesn't feel good.
And need for control. The
Yeah.
ego needs to control.
When we
Uh,
talk about that in the physical body, it really doesn't feel good.
uh-huh.
And we don't look good.
I want to say quickly that when I say it takes time, there may be people listening to say who say, I just don't have the time.
Hmm.
But you can meditate while you're washing dishes
Absolutely.
or folding clothes.
And I think that's the whole point of meditation. And I teach,
Hmm.
like, I teach meditation to all my clients, and I used to teach meditation classes in New York. And I would always say, like, meditation isn't just about sitting for 20 minutes and then you're done and you get
Hmm.
on with your day. Meditation is about creating a practice that in every single moment you're connecting and you're being like, this is a sacred moment. This is a sacred moment. This is a sacred.
Yeah.
And Thich Nhat Hanh, has really profound writings about make washing dishes your meditation.
Uh-huh.
Make
Pieces.
walking every step
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
meditation.
Pieces every step, his
Hmm.
book was. And it means, and as a child, he took 45 minutes to eat a cookie.
Yeah, he's such a profound teacher. I could go on with him, but I think, coming back to what we're talking about, the bad habits, the surrender, and moving into putting in the effort, putting in the time to move into a better habit. It's hard. It's hard, but you have to trust that part of you that's in your heart saying it's worth it.
Well, and what helps me are conversations like this with other people who are taking very seriously um, their individual journey through
Hmm.
life, who share their wisdom. That helps me a lot, you
It's
know.
and I think it's helpful because we talk a lot about things that aren't physical. Like a feeling, I believe, is physical. You feel that physically. But when we're talking about God, when we're talking about energy, when we're talking about love, it's very sort of non tangible. So when we connect with other humans, which we feel are physical, it just grounds us a little bit to be like, this is possible, or I'm not the only one. And I think that's how we create a community. That's why community is so important.
Yes, and I just community needs to be voluntary and
Mm-hmm.
come together out of interest and love.
Honestly,
It can't be a club or a clique or uh, it can't be you have to do this to get into us. You have to have read Thich Nhat Hanh. You have to have read Pema
you need
Chodron.
to have a license. You need to have these letters after your name.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes.
need to change your name.
Yeah.
I think, but again, community is based on things that you have in common. So, we were talking about sort of how we're always met with those moments where we think we have stuff in common and then we have a conversation where we're like, we don't have that in common. And we
Uh,
question it. I think when we're talking about the community and, Thich Nhat Hanh calls these communities in Buddhism sanghas, these communities are founded on core truths, which all of us feel. All of us, these are core truths in our heart desires, like love, like the freedom to express ourselves, the freedom to be equal. These aren't sort of political propaganda topics. These are fundamental things that every single human feels, fundamental
yes,
truths.
and has since the beginning of
Since the
time.
beginning of time. How do we know this? Because everything that has ever been written or carried through this time, through stories, comes back to these core human life truths.
Plato, Socrates, you go back as far as you can. And I'm so shocked that some people live their whole lives being unaware that these things were said.
Oh,
You
I'm so
know,
glad that you brought that up.
go
I
ahead.
had a moment of that this week too, where I don't know if you I try to keep track of what the trends are on social media and how it's shifting. And what I've noticed on social media is that rather than people having guests on their podcasts, they will take snippets of somebody else speaking at another event, and then they will talk over what that person's saying. Have you seen that at all?
They talk over it.
Yeah, so that person will be like somebody will take a snippet of what you and I are talking about, and in a split screen have you and I our video together, and then they'll be like, that's true, that's not true, this is what I think about that.
Ah,
This is the new trend. And I was looking at one of these and I was like, this is a fascinating trend, how we've just I can understand how it's difficult to get guests and really good guests. Like we're probably not going to get Tony Robbins or Oprah.
no, but we've had some great guests.
We've had some great guests, but when we're talking about social media and gaining influence and gaining numbers, we need the Oprah. And it's hard to get access to Oprah. So the next best thing, I guess, is taking a video of Oprah speaking and saying, here's my video with Oprah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I was,
maybe they'll have videos of us. I don't
maybe they
mind.
won't. I don't
We
mind. But
we give permission.
I found it fascinating. Again, it was a Tony Robbins thing, which is interesting that he's so in our world these days. He was speaking, and this kid, maybe 24 years old, was like, even Tony Robbins knows. And I'm like, Tony Robbins has been speaking about this before you were born.
Yeah. But you
Like,
don't know that. You may at 22 have already come to your truths on your own without knowing what Tony Robbins has said or
yeah. And
what
I
even
was
Jesus has said.
I was just shook by this kid saying, even Tony Robbins knows. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute. What are we talking about here?
Well, he's affirming himself by saying, even this guy who's so popular and famous and, sells so many books
He agreed
agrees.
with me.
He agrees with me.
It's
So you should too.
fascinating.
What's
Yeah,
that?
it's
Yeah, you should too.
fascinating.
Okay, I'm going
Imagine
to
people
shift.
being like, oh, Brian and Hayley said this, so they know I'm telling the truth. Or
Right, right, right,
And I
right.
wonder too, like, does Tony Robbins even know? Has he even given permission for people to use his conversations in that way?
Yeah, and is Tony Robbins even aware of the wisdom that you and I share?
Oh, is even aware. Which again, comes back to that whole surrender of the consciousness and those core truths, which they're not ours, they're everybody's.
Yes.
So we're all going to agree on some of these core truths because they're all about.
Yes, and the four truths reflect the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So for those listening, name the four truths.
Oh, I'm saying core, core.
Core truths.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a number of them?
I mean, I think we could make them like so. There's love.
Hmm.
There's equality. I think there's freedom. There's the right to abundance. Like everybody has a right to everything on this earth.
Now that's why people want you to say you're a liberal.
Or a socialist or a communist.
Doesn't matter to me as long as you don't say, you're, well, even I don't even want to throw out a word because it's again off the top of my head in terms of, I was going to say capitalist, but I'm a capitalist. So, but when you were talking about equality and everyone should have, they have a right to the basics of life and love. Uh, there are cases in front of the Supreme Court about states eliminating the ability for Black people to have a representative in Congress because they redistrict it so
Mm-hmm.
that they're never going to do it.
The
And so,
gerrymandering.
in my mind, that's unfair. It's you're not giving Black people in your state equality. Uh, I mean, that's a pretty easy thing to make a judgment about for me. I know there are more complicated cases, but for me, that says, why are you doing this? Is it because it's because you want more representatives in Congress than the opposing party, has? Um, but can I shift subjects with
Let's
you?
go.
How much time do we have?
We
Oh,
have a
we have
while.
yeah, we have a while. So, a friend of mine, and this is all related. You know that we bring this
We
full
all come
circle.
back.
And again, it's about uh, surrendering. Uh, a friend of mine, sister just died, and she died after many, many, many years of being in a hospital with debilitating effects from drug use. And my first thing is to dash off a note and say, she's in a better place. And, I give the example of the wave breaking on the beach and the sand, water going through the sand and going back to the source. But, and Haley, this is how I think what's going to happen to me, but I'm not sure this is going to happen. I don't know that she's in a happier place. I don't know, and that's surrendering to not knowing.
I think you do.
What's that?
I think you do. In your heart, you know that it's a better place. I think it's the mind that creates the doubt of like, how do you know? Explain your knowing to me.
Hmm. The knowing just comes from
The knowing is the
the
heart.
soul.
Yeah. And it's,
Yeah,
again, it's those core truths that
yeah.
death is not the end, or
You
death is
can't,
not this
yeah,
dark hole of hell.
you
Death
can't
is
prove it.
more love. We
Yeah,
return, and talking about that, we return to the one which is all love. How do you know it's all love? I feel it in my heart.
yeah,
My whole body becomes electric when I say it. Now, if I turn it around and be like, nah, it's just a cold, dark hole, my body is just like, you. And I think that's, when we're talking about breaking habits, when we're talking about surrendering, we have to discern between what is that core heart truth, that soul truth, versus the ego and the stuff that we're heard and or the stuff we've heard, which creates the doubt. And we have to trust how our bodies feel. We have to
right,
trust that when something feels truly good, then that is good and everybody benefits from it. When it feels ick and we don't feel good doing it, it's probably because the benefit is not going to be great. It's not going to have that extension or the expansion of greater benefit for the greater good.
Do you believe in the ongoing existence of consciousness?
Ooh, now, Brian, you're getting to my happy place. Um, because also, like other things that I talk about and meditate on is the metaphysics, the quantum physics, plasma consciousness, and the consciousness of plasma back and forth. I do believe in what is the word? It's not infinite. It's ongoing. It's like infinite is not the word because it's not just there's no end. It's just this evolving consciousness. And it's very circular. It's not linear, which would assume infinity. It's this continuous consciousness and expansion of consciousness that all comes down to love. All comes down to that core, what is the plasma made out of? What is that energy called? I call it love.
Well, you sometimes hear people say, Haley, that uh, mom died, so she's with dad now, right?
I think she
It,
is.
pardon me?
I think so.
What if she doesn't want to be with dad?
Well, I think that we come in with the karmic contracts. And I think if you love somebody, so like for me, with the people that I love, when I die, I feel like I'm still going to be around those souls. Like we're all going to be in a soul family together or close by. We might be neighbors or we might be walking together still. The people that I have ended karma with, do I want to meet my parents on the other side? I'm okay with
Sweet.
that because that version of them is love.
Yeah.
But chances are I probably don't need to because I've completed the karma. I can say with great confidence and with a knowing in my heart that I reached a place of pure love, unconditional love for them. So I don't care if I do. I don't care if I don't. It's just love. And I think we ask those questions because we immediately think, well, if I was a human on the other side, how would I feel about that?
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's the
different.
way a lot of us think. You'll see your sister when you die,
In the fight.
and is that true? I mean, we're not human on the. If there is a continuation of consciousness or energy, it's not in human form.
It's not in human form.
Yes, and my guess is that if you've rejoined, uh, the higher power that you're transformed by the experience.
You're back to love. You're back to love.
You,
I think when we're talking about this, expanding, evolving consciousness, it all comes from love, returns to love. And, us humans are very limited in our capability to fully comprehend what that is. How do we know this? Because we're changing our minds about it every 5 seconds. And when we're not able to comprehend it, when we're not able to measure it, or we're not able to fully define it with the English words that we have, we say that it's not possible or that it doesn't exist. We need a little bit of humility here is that we are not, God is not human,
and yet was,
yet
and actually
is,
is.
yet
Yeah.
is. But that consciousness doesn't just stop at humanity
No,
because
it's in
stars are not human,
right,
the planets are not human,
right.
water's not human,
Flowers aren't human.
flowers aren't human. So we kind of need to step back and be like, well, I know this because I can see it that we're not it.
Yeah. So then what happens, going back to my point of surrender,
Surrender. I
is
think,
that if you come up with, all the things you just said were true. If a person takes time to think about it, it can be overwhelming or reassuring. Uh, but it goes back to what we were saying earlier about our job in life is to know ourselves and to be fully who we are,
mhm.
right? You and I may, meet for bridge with a couple friends every Thursday, right? But when the four of us die, we're not going to be playing bridge.
No, we might, we're not because that's a human experience.
Yeah. And we don't need to get together every Thursday.
What we might not because we might just all be together.
Right. Yeah.
That feeling of connection, I believe that when we die, that feeling of the connection doesn't come and go. It's always there.
Hmm.
So we don't have to make the effort to connect. It's always there. And I think, when people pass, and my understanding of grief is we've never been taught how to accept unconditional love. All the love that we've been taught about is conditional love. So when somebody passes and they move into that complete love, that unconditional love, and now that doorway or that tunnel is open of unconditional love, we feel grief because we can feel that unconditional love coming for us. We don't know what to do with it. We panic.
Right.
We panic and we're just like, no, 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 no. I need this love.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah,
so I think when we pass over and when a person passes over, we're now open to that connection where we don't have to have a date every Thursday to connect. We just connect.
yeah.
And we have that when we're alive too, through telepathy. You and I can connect anytime we want. How do we know this? Because there are times where you and I will think about each other at the same time and we'll have the same thought. We'll have the same things that happen to us. And we're like, oh my God, that happened too.
Uh-huh.
We're still connected because we're all part of this thing called love, this thing called energy. And
To
so when
be,
we're surrendering into that love and into that feeling of connection, that feeling of like, I'm in the love.
in order for that to happen, I believe, you have to forgive everything in your past. There are no
Forgive or
grudges.
accept, or they said
Huh?
the same word.
Pardon me?
Forgive or accept.
I say forgive. Accept is obviously uh, also true, but I think we move
Mm-hmm.
through life with memories of some things that were not so good that happened to us, and we got through it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, and we don't wish the person who did it evil or harm, but we really haven't forgiven them because uh, some of us haven't really forgiven them.
Yeah.
And I think for me, speaking only for myself, I need to forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
I need to say they did the best they could
Yeah.
because
I think that's
otherwise they're a chain that I'm dragging, behind me, like Marley in with Scrooge's partner in A Christmas Carol. I have all these chains that I'm dragging. If I don't cut it loose and say, I
neutral.
forgive you. I
Yeah.
forgive
And let
you.
it go.
And I hope you forgive me.
So I think the surrender there is surrendering into everything is happening for me, not some things. Everything is happening for me.
Yes. Yes, I
And
agree.
you talk about how sometimes I say stuff and it puts people on the defensive, on the back foot. That's one of the things that absolutely puts people on the back foot when I say everything is happening for us. Not just some things, not just some of the time, all the time. Everything is happening for us, meaning towards our greater, better evolution. And I do get the response, well, what about the people in Gaza? What about the people in Israel? How's that happening for them?
And we don't know, and we don't
No, no,
know.
I'm not talking to them. I
Yeah.
haven't spoken to them. I don't know what their story is.
Uh-huh. I mean, we have an idea of what we think is just or unjust. We
Mm-hmm.
want something done about we want something done about crimes against humanity
Wherever it happens.
wherever it happens in the world. Uh,
And I think, coming back to words that we're using, that crime against humanity is rarely where other humans have limited the rights of other humans.
right, exactly. And really, in some cases, genocide, where there's an attempt to wipe out a whole group of people because you think that's the way the world ought to be without
Mm-hmm.
those people. Uh, Again, and this is where people will go crazy with you and with me. If we say that everything that happens to us is supposed to happen to us, is that true of the Holocaust? And I would argue that if we're true to our word, when people entered the concentration camps, they did not leave consciousness behind.
Mm-mm.
They're still human beings trying to make their way, trying to have their faith guide them, trying not to be consumed by hatred, right?
Or fear.
Or fear. That's their individual journey.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need to accept that uh, it's all about knowing who we are and understanding who we are and loving who we are and
And
changing uh, with anxiety.
and we have examples of that in the scriptures and all of the written documents and the stories that are retold about how these great masters went through such great suffering and even in that great suffering surrendered into love. Like Jesus in the 40 days in the desert, the Buddha under the tree, not eating, not doing anything, and like coming out literally starving. You know, we have examples of even in the worst imaginable things, we can still connect into love. And it is possible because other people have done it.
Yeah, coincidentally, Haley, the message in the Tao and the Wu Wei, which Ray and I read daily, but today's messages was about um, things, rituals from the past are no longer relevant. Sages lived, but you're not supposed to be them. You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be in your time frame.
Yeah.
This is now, and now is the past tomorrow, right? So be again with this now,
With this now
right?
and where you are now.
Right. Even my decision to not uh, take what was written to me and run with it, right? That was the past already. But I'm different because of the experience I had with it and the
The
choices
choice
that I
that you
made.
made.
Yeah.
The choice that you made. And ultimately that came down into surrendering into your heart's desire, surrendering into it's going to be a little bit hard to do this, but I know it's going to be better because I'll feel better.
It's going to be, I'm going to be more like the person that I want to be.
I'm going to be loving kindness.
Yes.
So we're just running short of time now. As I was, dissecting surrender and heart desires, what really came out to me was a clear message of get really clear on what your foundation is. When was the last time you and I was talking to myself? When was the last time I had looked at what my foundation was? So being able to dissect surrender, be able to come back to the heart desire, it was like, all right, what are your heart desires? What is it that you're doing all of this for? And I came up with words. First one was peace. Second one was kindness or kind. Third one was vitality. The fourth one was faith. And the fifth was presence.
And I think I told you in my book uh, that when I went through an exercise on this, and I know we have limited time, the words that I ended up coming up with after having to pull them out of sentences was innocence, compassion, uh, love, God. My innocent compassion is nature.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, those were, and there's one more. Those were the basics of what I thought was really important in my life
And
that
would
I
you say
didn't.
that that's your motivation every day to be in those words?
I would say that those words were accurate at the time that I gave them. That they undoubtedly change. If I did the exercise
Mhm.
again, the words may be different.
I dare you to. Do you want to do the exercise again? And when we meet in 2 weeks, we'll see what words you came up with.
Yeah, and you too. Yeah. Are you going to write
It's
a
definitely
sentence?
evolving for me because I'm still sitting with the whole surrender and heart desire.
Are
So,
you going to write 12 sentences or are you going to write 12 words?
well, I
You
have
have to,
to look at my pyramid because I created a pyramid. And so I have those 5 words that I came up with last week. But I think as I sit with it more, there is more clarity and there's more definition. So it's possible that in 2 weeks, those words have tweaked a little bit.
good. And now I have a homework assignment.
Awesome. And we have a
I
topic
like
for next time.
good. I love you, my dear.
I
I
love you
love our
dearly. Have a
love this
wonderful week.
time.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Those Christmas trees behind you, have they always been there or did you put them out because you're super excited? Your time.
No, no, they're always been
Are
there.
they?
Now at Christmas time, Haley, and I think you've been here at
I've
Christmas
seen your
time.
house at Christmas time.
Yeah, all of them go out into the great
Okay.
room.
Okay.
Um,
So they just shift.
so they're here now with the music boxes, but we have hundreds of trees, small ones generally.
Your house is like Christmas land.
It is. It's like you've wandered into Santa's workshop.
I was wondering if you're like really getting excited about it.
And there's the innocence that I was talking about in the words.
Hmm.
I never want to lose that innocence, that childlike wonder.
Yep.
And I don't never want to be never want to be bitter.
Oh, no.
Yeah. All right, honey. I'll see you in two
All right.
weeks.
Lots of love. We'll speak in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.